Hey, alchemists. Welcome to part 2 of our Game of Life series. Now, in part 1, I talked about how the basic kind of foundational rule is that we have to know ourselves, right? Know thyself. This is the foundational rule. And I'm talking about knowing ourselves as the divine creators that we came here to be. When we are in the mindset of, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, we are not living in the truth of know thyself. And when we know ourselves, that we are created in the image and likeness of our Creator, this opens the door to the next level in this game of life that we are playing. So, today, I'm going to be talking about the rule of giving and receiving. It turns out that the game of life is a great game of giving and receiving because it is through giving and receiving that we learn more about ourselves. We will know whether or not we are aligned with the divine within us, if we are good at giving and receiving. Because it's through giving and receiving what shows up in our lives is either we're in a state of expansion, which is to be aligned with the divine within, or we're not good at giving and receiving, so we're in a state of restriction. So we're not aware of the divine within us. But first I just want to say, or just clarify, what exactly is giving and receiving? Most of us know giving and receiving as exchanging something, right? Maybe you exchange gifts, but we're exchanging not just gifts. Of course, we exchange our time, our talents, our treasures for other things. You might stop and get some coffee, and you're exchanging money where the barista is exchanging their time and then, of course, the actual coffee. Okay? Now, we're not the only ones that give and receive. The universe gives of itself all the time. And how that looks in our lives is that the universe gives to us ideas and inspiration, guidance, and also substance, right? The substance of the things we create. Now, the universe is also in a cycle of giving and receiving because it's receiving an experience of demonstration. For example, I was inspired to write a song, and it was a true inspiration because when I sat down with my guitar, this song, it was like it wanted to be created. It wanted to be made into music. Okay, so I did it. And now every time I sing the song, I play the song somewhere, that's the universe experiencing itself through a song. See, God experiences itself on a deeper level through our creations. Now, in our culture, giving and receiving is not given equal measure, right? It's believed, we hear this all the time, it's better to give than receive, right? If you've heard this, please just raise your hand. It's better to give than receive. However, this can be problematic because it teaches us to overgive and not be a very good receiver. I know when I was younger, I would feel shame when I wanted things. And so I would just ignore them and not tell anybody. As an adult, I became an overgiver, making it impossible for me to receive help. Like, I remember an experience, and I didn't notice it at the time it was happening, but I wanted to attend an event, but at the time I was in charge of managing care for both my mom and my aunt. And that's a full-time job right there. And I wanted to go do something, but our caregiver couldn't do it, couldn't babysit, right? I had somebody else who was a caregiver offer, and I couldn't even see that I could say yes to that. I was just like, no, I have to be the one to do it. It didn't seem like a possibility to me. It didn't seem like it was in the realm of things that could happen to me. This is what happens when we are taught to overgive. Okay? It sets us up to be terrible receivers, and we end up overgiving ourselves to the point of exhaustion, where we will believe, we can really believe, oh, the universe doesn't have my back, right? We're saying no to help and support, not understanding that help and support is a way for us to receive, and it's an available option. Now, this little gem of a Bible verse is found in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, and it's about giving and receiving. It says, "Do not fool yourself. God is not to be mocked. What you plant, you will harvest. What you give, you will receive." Okay, that's literally what it means. What you give, you will receive. Okay, but it's saying don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. There are no spiritual shortcuts. That's what this means. Don't fool yourself. There are no spiritual shortcuts. You will receive what it is that you give. Right? A lot of times in spiritual circles, we think that affirmations are enough, or we think that making a vision board is enough. But it's not. There's a lot of activity that we participate with, right? We've got to participate with the giving and the receiving of the universe. We can't put out all the time complaining and blaming and pointing our finger, but then make a vision board where we live in our dream house and expect to receive our dream house, not when we walk around complaining and blaming all the time, right? So, Florence Scovel Shinn says this: if you give hate, you will receive hate. If you give love, you will receive love. What you give, you will receive. But she's not talking about something that is literal. We all have had the experience where we have loved someone who did not love us back. Okay, but say, for example, you watch a video of your favorite little baby animal wearing some pajamas. You may feel a lot of love for that, for those little baby animals, right? Or maybe you're watching a video about babies, right? But you feel a lot of love. Now, we're not being loved back by whatever it is in the video that we're watching. The reason that when we give love, we receive love is because when we give love, that love is moving through us and we feel it. We're feeling that love in our heart, right? But see, it's the same. If somebody hates, they will receive hate because as they are hating, they will feel it move through their body. Okay, so that's their receiving hate. Now, the other part of this, of course, is that if we tend to love or if we tend to hate, that tends to be our way of showing up to the world. Okay, there's some people who, no matter what is going on in their lives, they always show up as very loving. And there are some people who, no matter what's going on in their life could be great, and yet they're very hateful or vindictive, or maybe they're always in victim consciousness. So when we have a kind of consciousness, whether it's hatefulness, vindictiveness, blaming, complaining, victimization, or love, that consciousness will trigger our brain to find more of the same, right? As we are loving, we find more to love. And as we are hating, we find more to hate. This is why it is said that if you're not grateful, you'll never find things to be grateful for. Yet if you are a very grateful person, you will always have something to be grateful for. Okay, so now in this giving and receiving flow that we are in, there's something is called the law of divine compensation. And this is what giving and receiving comes down to. The law of divine compensation is we receive what we give. Okay? We receive what we give. Or you could say it this way. We experience what we give. Right? What we're giving, we're putting out there to the universe. That's what the universe responds to. So if we are being very loving, the universe responds by giving us more things to love. If we are being hateful or in victim consciousness, that's what we put out there, and the universe gives us more to be in victim consciousness about. Now, giving and receiving is an exchange. We experience what we give, but also giving and receiving is how we participate with life, right? In this game of life, in this rule of giving and receiving, we're participating. Now, we have heard a lot that giving is better than receiving, and we know now that this is not true. However, giving does do something that receiving doesn't necessarily do. And giving triggers the next play. Giving triggers the next thing that will happen. When we give, that giving sets in motion something that will happen, right? Receiving does not set things in motion. Receiving does not trigger something to happen, right? It's giving because we are acting on something, right? When we give. For example, you receive divine direction from the universe, but you don't have to do anything with that. You can think about that divine direction and just think, oh, that's just wishful thinking. But when you act on that divine direction, you're now giving. Now, because you acted on that divine direction, the universe will give you your next instruction. Okay, you'll receive more direction. Now, this is kind of like playing ball with the universe, right? We're participating with the universe. Now, we used to have a black lab named Buffy, and Buffy was a good girl. She was such a good girl, but she could not play fetch with a ball. She just could not get it. And I would throw that ball, and she would run after it, and then she'd stand next to it and stare at it. I'd end up walking across the yard, picking up the ball, throwing it back across the yard. She would run after it, so excited, and then she'd stand there and stare at it. Well, she was not participating in this game of catch, right? Now, my dog that I have now, Lilu, she's really good at interacting with this game, right? She will grab the ball, she will chase the ball, she will bring it back to me, she'll let me throw it again, okay? So you can see the difference. If we're not participating with the universe, nothing is happening. If we're just sitting on that bit of divine guidance, or we're just sitting on that inspiration or that idea, and we're just sitting with it, it's like, I just have to think about that. I'll have to study it some more. I'll have to ask all my friends what they think about it. When we just are sitting on it, nothing's happening. We're not participating, okay? When we give back, we give and receive, we are participating with this game of life, right? We are. It's like playing ball with the universe. Okay, so giving and receiving, you can see it's a pretty big deal. It's a big deal. But what happens when you feel like you're giving, give, but you don't feel like you're being divinely compensated? What do we do when this doesn't seem to be working, right? What's going on? Okay, so when we give, there are three ways that we give, okay? Now, when we give, and we don't feel like we're being divinely compensated, we want to look at, of course, our time, talents, and treasures, right? Our time, how do we give our time? How do we give our talents? How do we give our treasures or our money, right? But life is still feeling like a struggle. We want to look at how are we giving our time, talent, and treasure, okay? For example, I used to go to a church when my kids were very young. And when they'd pass that basket around, I would throw in $1. And I would say, well, they are watching my son, and so the least I can do is throw $1 in. And like literally, that was the least that I could do. I could have put in more money. Okay, I was under giving. When we undergive, we want to look at, are we taking our life for granted? Okay, undergiving is not a state of generosity. Undergiving is a state of entitlement. Okay, so if we are undergiving, we are taking our life for granted, and there is no generosity in that. Now, there's overgiving also. Now, overgiving, we will feel a loss. Okay, we're going to feel like, oh, this is too much, but I have to. Now, a lot of us overgive our time and we exhaust ourselves, right? Now, I found unity, right, shortly after this experience with this other church. And I found unity and I started going, and the minister there, she was so good, Reverend Joanne Bacon. And I remember she gave a talk on prosperity. Prosperity. See, unity churches pretty much never talk about tithing. They talk about prosperity because we create prosperity through our actions and through our love, right? And through giving and receiving. Now, I met some people there and they were talking about what they give to the church every week. And one person was like, oh yeah, like if I throw in $100, like I usually get like $1,000 over the next week. And somebody else was like, oh yeah, I always tithe and I got a new job and I made more money. Or somebody else was like, yeah, or I got a big fat raise. And I was like, oh my God, I want to experience that kind of prosperity. So I overgave and I experienced loss. This was also not generosity because I was scared. And then I had the expectation. It's like, please, if I overgive, if I give this amount, please, universe, see me and give me back everything and more, right? And so that was the feeling I had. So we undergive and there's no generosity and there's a feeling of entitlement, right? And we're taking our life for granted, or we are overgiving. We overgive. And really what's behind this is not trusting in the universe. And we feel a loss. Like it's like I'm losing something as I'm giving all this, but I don't have a choice. I just have to keep doing this. Try to get the universe's attention, right? I have to make things happen for myself because the universe is not coming through for me. Now, between undergiving and between overgiving, there's this little zone, the abundant zone. Here's where we are giving with generosity, but we're not giving so much that we bankrupt ourselves emotionally, financially, spiritually, like any of that. Okay? But see, we are giving out of our comfort zone, right? We are giving out of our comfort zone. It's just not way out of our comfort zone. But see, when we give in our abundant zone, right, we give a little bit extra. It's a little uncomfortable. I'll give a little bit more of my time, right? Or I'll give a little bit more of my treasure. I'll give a little bit more at work. Like I'll go above and beyond a little bit more, right? And so we go out of our comfort zone, and this is where we have to rely on faith. This is where like the universe carries us along, okay? In that abundant zone, right? And this is generosity. Now, there is this word tithing, and I use this example like of my entitlement issues and my overgiving in how I was tithing, because tithing is the most triggering word when it comes to new thought, like spirituality. Like nobody wants to talk about tithing, right? It's more triggering than if you say the word Jesus to somebody, right? It's like so triggering. Okay. And this is because money shows us the best and the worst of ourselves, right? Money shows us our generosity. Money also shows us where we are entitled, where we are hoarding, where we are afraid, like, or where we bankrupt ourselves, giving and giving and giving, like that one relative who always needs $500, right? And it's like, well, let me take out a second mortgage on my house, right? To keep helping you out financially, even though you're in your 50s and you could take care of yourself, right? So that's why I talked about tithing. Okay. With tithing, there also goes something like a lot of us connect tithing with 10%. Okay, 10%. Well, it's the number 10 that I'm going to say is the important number. Not that it's actually 10% of our income or 10% of our available time or 10% of our treasure. I mean, how do you measure some of it? I mean, of course you can measure your money, but 10, the number 10 is where we acknowledge God as the source of our supply. 10 signifies law and responsibility, right? That the nature of the universe is expansion and it's always giving. It's our responsibility to participate with life. It's our responsibility to act on the inspiration, the ideas, the guidance that we are receiving, right? 10 is what we give to live in harmony, right? We're going out of our comfort zone where we have to rely on source. We're going out of our comfort zone where we don't know how things will come together. But we know that there's that within us that knows what to do, how to do it, and it compels us to act on what it knows. 10 is the number of integration, and it is the tipping point from lack consciousness into abundance consciousness. And this has been taught for thousands of years. In the book of Malachi, the Lord actually says, "Test me and I will open the windows of heaven for you and pour out so much blessing, you will not have room enough for it." So you can see that tithing is a form of giving. It is an act of faith. Giving is an act of faith. Receiving is an act of faith. And our money does best reveal if we are in lack consciousness or abundance consciousness. Of course, we are also giving our time, our talent, treasure. So we want to look at, how do we give at work? Are we thinking, well, they don't pay me very well, so I'm just going to do enough to get by, let somebody else deal with the hard stuff? Okay, how do we give in our relationships? Are we just giving enough to get by, right? Are we just kind of showing up, phoning it in? Okay, how are we giving in our relationships? In this game of life, in this game of giving and receiving, we are learning to know ourselves at a deeper level. And how we are giving, right? Are we giving too much? Are we giving too little? Or are we giving with a true heart of generosity? Because then that's how we become good receivers, right? We have to be in that abundant zone of our giving. Okay, so now how about this question? What about when we don't know what to give? Okay, what can I give when I don't know what to give? Now, it has been said that you give whatever it is you most want to experience. Okay, and so if you want to be brave for someone who's feeling fear. Okay, if you want prosperity, help somebody else figure out how to increase prosperity in their lives, right? Right? As we give, so do we receive. But I'm going to say, if you just really don't know how to show up, give love, right? Love is what we give when we don't know what to give. Give love, right? Be compassionate, be kind, be merciful. Remember to see the divine spark in every person. That's giving love, is to remember no matter what's going on with them, the divine is at work in them, and we may not know how the divine is at work in them, and it may seem like what they're doing is ridiculous, okay, but we don't know what's going on in their head. We don't know what experience this is going to give them. So we just see the divine spark in every person. This is love. So our call to action this week, start with our affirmation. This could be an easy one. As I give, so do I receive. Let's say it 3 times together. As I give, so do I receive. As I give, so do I receive. As I give, so do I receive. Giving and receiving, I'm telling you, it's a big part of this game because it shows us everything about ourselves. Now, over this next week, we will all have the opportunity to see what does our giving look like, right? And I like to always start with this question: what am I working with here? What am I working with here? Am I taking things for granted? Am I under giving, right? Am I feeling kind of entitled? This is really us saying meh to the universe, right? We want the universe to respond to us. And entitlement and under giving is, do we want to keep experiencing that? No, No. Okay? So we can ask ourselves, okay, am I undergiving or am I overgiving? Right? Am I overdoing things, trying to manipulate and force things to happen? Am I just not trusting in the universe having my back? Or am I in that little abundance zone where it's a little scary, but I feel a lot of appreciation for my life because it's very exciting feeling like I'm being carried along by the universe. Now, that little zone, that abundant zone, that's where we can look into our lives. This is where we can ask the question, am I seeing the world as a mystic? That God is all things, everything that's ever been and everything that's yet to be, right? So that I can see God available in conditions and where I'm feeling challenged. Can I live my life as the alchemist, right? Do I look at the hand that I have been dealt, and instead of complaining about it, I ask myself, okay, well, what am I going to do with what I've got right here and now? What am I going to do with this? Can I change it? Or do I have to rise above it? Because seeing into the world as a mystic, living our lives as an alchemist, that is how we create heaven on earth. So remember, until next time, you are divinely designed to be doing all of this. You are a one-time, one-of-a-kind cosmic event, and in everything you do, you are blessed.